Hi, I'm Sue Bohlin. I am privileged to speak to you today about raising gender healthy kids. I come to this topic from 16 years of serving with Living Hope Ministries, which is an organization in the Dallas Fort Worth area that helps people dealing with unwanted homosexuality. And after all those years of walking with people who felt very wounded in their who they were, they didn't feel comfortable in their own gender because of misconceptions and lies that they had believed, particularly labels that had been put on them by other people. I have walked with many, many men and women as they developed greater intimacy with God, and He brought healing to their hearts. And as they learned to believe what God told them about themselves, they were able to let go of the false ideas about themselves and grab a hold of who they were really meant to be. It's given me some perspective between that and being the mother of two sons who are now raised. I've learned a lot about what goes into gender healthy kids, and I'm delighted to share that with you today. When we support our kids' gender, it results in a healthy self-concept. We all want children who feel good about themselves. We want girls who feel good about being a girl. We want boys who feel good about being a boy. It's an important part of preventing gender insecurity because that is just the essential part of what does it mean to be human. The very first thing that happens when a baby is born is it's a girl or it's a boy, and everything is built on top of that. So let's talk about how do we support the gender that God chooses for each child. And I want to be very clear. God never makes a mistake on the gender of a child. So if you've got a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 6-year-old who says, I may be a girl on the outside, but I really feel like I'm a boy on the inside, something is going on in his thinking. There's nothing wrong with his body or his gender. The wrongness is in the thinking. God didn't make a mistake. He makes a statement about each child's gender, and it's good when each one is born. Let me just say, before I jump in, that it's easier to raise a healthy child than to repair an adult. So let's talk about how do we raise healthy children. I want to talk about some gender differences. One of the most basic things that I want to share with you, and honestly, this has been the light bulb moment for hundreds and hundreds of people over the last several years as I have had a chance to share about this, is when we think about a gender spectrum. Often, if I say that phrase to you, gender spectrum, you probably think of a bar with masculinity on one end and femininity on the other, and that everybody is somewhere on that spectrum. I don't think that's the way it works. According to the book of Genesis, God created them male and female. I believe there is one spectrum for masculinity and a separate spectrum for femininity. And this has been an amazing idea for a lot of people, and it answers a lot of questions. Let's look at boys first. On the masculinity spectrum, on the one end, you've got your typically active boy, rough and tumble, loves to get out and climb trees, gets dirty, loves anything roughly spherical that he can play ball with. And they tend to be kind of emotionally insensitive. They're often clueless as they just kind of barge through life. And a great number, the vast majority of boys tend more toward that end of the spectrum. But on the other end of the spectrum, also created by God in His goodness, with a good design, are your emotionally sensitive boys. These are the ones who aren't real wild about physical sports, not interested in climbing trees or getting dirty, very emotionally sensitive. It's like they've got little antennae constantly scoping the atmosphere for anybody who's upset. How is everybody doing? My husband teaches 2-year-olds every Sunday morning at church, and he tells me that he can spot these emotionally sensitive little boys at that tender age. If someone gets upset, they'll drop what they're doing and go over and pat them on the back. You okay? You okay? And they're very nurturing that way. These emotionally sensitive boys, there's maybe 5% of the population is like that. They often have amazing gifts in creativity and music and art and various kinds of sensitivity. One of my friends told me that when her little emotionally sensitive boy was 18 months old, pre-verbal, she took him to get shoes, and they brought out boxes of shoes, and instead of trying them on, he would reach in, smell it, and if it was vinyl, if it was man-made, he would throw it aside, and he kept having them open up the boxes, and when they pulled out a little leather shoe, he smelled it and he held it out to his mama. That's what he wanted. He wanted the real thing. And as he grew older, he would rather not have any furniture in a room and wait until he could afford to buy the real thing, the real wood, instead of something cheap that you go to Target and buy. He's got this intense sensitivity. When these types of boys are supported in the type of masculine that God made them to be, they can be the most amazing artists and designers, counselors, great husbands. They can be great fathers, teachers. But we need to support that is the kind of masculine they are. The problem is when you've got your rough and tumble boys on one end and your emotionally sensitive ones on the other, and then you've got everything in between. You can have kids who are a balance of both, and actually instead of taking one point on the spectrum, some children take up more bandwidth than others. So for example, I know some of these emotionally sensitive boys who are also amazing athletes. I would say Bruce Jenner would be one of them, actually. And they take up more bandwidth on the spectrum, which is an amazing gift. But these emotionally sensitive boys aren't like the rough and tumble boys, and because there's more of the rough and tumble boys, often they'll give the "you're not good enough" message to the emotionally sensitive ones. And these sensitive boys can grow up feeling, I'm different, I'm lesser than, I am other than. And that is a shameful feeling. And later on, when they're looking back on how they always felt like they didn't really fit in with the other boys, and they weren't a part of the world of boys the way the athletes were, they can easily believe the lie that, oh, you've always been gay. From the time you were born, you were gay. No, he wasn't gay. He was emotionally sensitive. He's gifted in a very different way. And we need to celebrate the kind of masculine all boys are, no matter where they fall on the spectrum. There is also a femininity spectrum. And on one end are your girly girls, the ones who come out of the womb going, could I have a pink receiving blanket, please? And one of those little bands that go around my little bald head with the flower on it, and can't wait for their fingernails to be big enough for mommy to put nail polish on them. And as soon as they put on a dress, they twirl around and they just think they're gloriously beautiful, and they love all the girly stuff. They often like pink and purple and glitter and princess and all those things that we think of as femininity, but that's not all of femininity. On the other end of the spectrum are your tomboys, your jockettes, the ones who really don't have a whole lot of patience for the pink, the purple, the glitter, the princess. They want to be out in the trees with the boys, throwing the balls with the other ball throwers. They are often physically gifted athletes, often very strong leaders if they have good relationships with other girls. And because there's more girly girls than there are tomboys, often those girly girls can become the mean ones who will give the message, you're not like us. There's something wrong with you. And so these tomboys can grow up thinking, there's something wrong with me. I feel other than. I'm different. And later on, they'll identify that as, I've always been a lesbian. That is a lie. There are no little gay kids running around. There are different kids. There are kids that are at different places on the masculinity or the femininity spectrum, but there are no gay children. And we need to celebrate the different kinds of masculine and the different kinds of feminine. They're pretty easy to identify. What we need to do is spread the word that God makes different kinds of boys and different kinds of girls of His choosing, and it's all good. Let me talk about some gender differences, much of which comes from John Gray's book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I will tell you up front, I am painting with a very broad brush. There are always going to be exceptions. But generally speaking, these things that I'm going to say are true of most boys and of most girls. Boys tend to get their sense of self from achievement. They're wired to be self-reliant. One of my sons, his first full sentence was, "Me do it." Did not want assistance. Whereas girls get their sense of self from relationships. They're wired to be interdependent and connect. Girls are just wired to connect with other people. That makes sense because Eve was created to be the mother of all living. She was created to be in relationship with her husband and relationship with her children. And then she had to grow her own girlfriends. But girls are about connecting with other people. So there's this big difference in the sense of self of boys and girls. Boys are linear in their thinking, whereas girls tend to be more intuitive. A big chunk of this is because there's a girl brain and a boy brain, a male and a female brain. What happens is that there's a point in the gestational process where the corpus callosum, which is a band of fibers that connects the hemispheres of the brain, is broken down in a male baby while he's still in the womb. And the right and the left hemispheres don't communicate with each other in a boy the way that they do in a girl. And so boys' thinking tends to be localized in one hemisphere at a time, whereas girls' brains there's this constant flow of electrical impulses in their brains, and they think differently. There's more randomness in the thinking, and it's more like a web where everything is connected to everything else. Girls are also more intuitive in that because we are created to be relational, we're paying attention to nonverbal cues. Stanford University actually proved that females are faster and more accurate at decoding nonverbal communication clues than males are. And a big part of that is the way that our brains work. Boys can tend to focus on just one thing at a time, whereas girls are multitaskers, and they'll enjoy the process rather than needing to just focus on the goal. I did not know this when my kids were little, and I would frustrate them. I found out accidentally later on. I would frustrate my sons when I would try to be doing something, for example, washing the dishes, loading or unloading the dishwasher, doing anything with my hands while I was talking to them. They didn't believe that I could be actually concentrating on what they had to say because they didn't have any multitasking abilities in their little brains at all. But girls are multitaskers for the most part because we are the ones who grow up to be mothers. And if mothers could only do one thing at a time, we wouldn't have any generations after Adam and Eve. Boys tend to be competitive where girls tend to be cooperative. That competition thing is an element, I believe, of a higher testosterone level in boys, but that's also the mindset. I read once a wise person said that to look at a boy is to see a contest. And that's very helpful for us as parents, as teachers, as anybody working with children, to know that to get the best out of a boy, help him be in competition with others. The book of Proverbs says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And the way to get the best out of a boy is to encourage the competition. This is not to say that there's no such thing as competitive girls. Of course there are. But because girls are created to be more relational and emotional, we tend to be more cooperative. And so the way to get the best out of a girl is to say, let's do this together. So, for example, when you've got little ones, and you probably do since you're in a MOPS group, one of your best tools can be a kitchen timer, especially if it makes sound, because you can say, all right, got to pick up the blocks, pick up the living room. Can you beat the timer? And you turn that thing on, and suddenly 1, 2, 3, go, you've got a competition. Whereas often you do that with a girl and she'll just look at you going, help me. So the best way to get a girl to do what she needs to do is to do it with her. There needs to be that withness. Another difference between genders is that boys tend to be more action-oriented, and which is, again, I think, an element of the higher testosterone level. They've got more wigglies in them, whereas girls are more verbal. Actually, it's not an illusion. When they put microphones on little bitty kids, they know that girls are going to generate 3 times as many words per day as boys. Now, that doesn't mean noise. Boys are very noisy, especially if they're into creating the sounds of life with sound effects. But once kids learn to talk, girls are more verbal than boys. When girls get hostile, their hostility is going to be verbal, whereas when boys are hostile, it's going to be active oriented, probably going to go around punch or kick or bite or hit in some way. They show their hostility difference. By the way, let me tell you now, before your girls get to junior high, that on your way to that age, get them their own Bible, get them a marker, and have them mark every verse in the book of Proverbs that refers to the tongue, so that they can understand how incredibly powerful, and especially, unfortunately, it's a power weapon against other people that the tongue is. Girls need to understand that the tongue can do so much more damage than slugging somebody. They need to be warned against that. Boys and girls bond differently. Boys bond shoulder to shoulder, facing in the same direction, whereas girls tend to bond face to face. As girls, we are all about the body language of other people, and we want to see it all, so we want to be face to face. Usually boys, though, they would rather bond shoulder to shoulder because they don't like being face to face, particularly in emotional conversations. That is very intimidating and it's difficult, with the exception of the emotional boys who really love that face-to-face stuff. That doesn't make them effeminate. It doesn't make them girls. It means that they are emotional in a different way. And that's one of the reasons those types of boys can become amazing boyfriends and husbands and counselors later on. But it's helpful to know that boys would prefer to bond shoulder to shoulder. So if you need to have a conversation with your son, particularly one where you're encouraging him to open his heart, don't get face-to-face with him. Go for a walk where you're walking together, or a drive in the car where he can't see your face and you can't see his. If you're having a difficult conversation with him, don't insist that he look you in the face, except when it comes time to apologize. When you are apologizing to someone, that needs to be eyeball to eyeball. But give boys the emotional space to just kind of look down and receive the words without the intimidation of the face-to-face contact. And then one final gender difference that I want to share with you is that boys and girls nurture differently. When you say nurturing, what probably comes to your mind, because you're a mother, is an empathetic nurturing, where your voice gets soft, your actions become very warm and compassionate, and you draw someone to you and you're patting them and stroking them, and you want them to know it's going to be okay. I'm a safe place to fall. And that is how girls nurture each other and mothers nurture children empathetically. Boys nurture aggressively, where they're trying to help each other develop a thicker skin. They need when daddies nurture their sons, it's going to be usually with an aggression type of nurturing, where he's going to say things like, "Come on, shake it off. It's okay. Is there blood? If there's no blood, come on, get up." And trying to help a boy to kind of separate from being a baby with mom and stand on his own on his way to being a man. That's one of the reasons that, for example, if you've got boys together, they'll go around fist bumping and knocking each other in the shoulder or in the head. All I have to do is ask you, do you watch NCIS? How does Jethro Gibbs nurture his male teammates with the head slap? He never does that with the female teammates. It's only the guys. And it's a good way of saying you belong in the world of men. That's a different type of aggression, that different type of nurturing. And if your sons are nurturing each other that way, let them do that. Don't be freaked out by it. It's a different kind than you do, but that's all right. They need that as males. Having covered some of the gender differences, having covered the gender spectrum, what I'd like to spend the rest of my time is talking about how important it is to follow God's rules for marriage and family. Now, there is no one-size-fits-all explanation for what causes gender insecurity, but we do know that when there are unhealthy patterns of relating in childhood, it often shows up in adults who have some sort of dysfunction in their own sense of gender, how they relate to other genders. And all children need to feel safe and secure in a family where mom and dad are committed to each other and committed to the kids, and it is a safe place to live. It's a safe place to fail. By the way, one of the things that we're discovering now, that a lot of colleges are having major problems with the results of helicopter parenting, is that because parents, particularly moms, would not allow the kids to fail, didn't allow the kids to experience the trauma of not getting straight A's or not making the team. Kids are getting to college and have no idea how to deal with the real world. They don't know how to deal with loss. They don't know how to deal with separation or disappointment. And that's because there's a lot of unhealthiness in families. So what we discovered, though, is that God's rules for marriage and family result in healthy relational patterns, and then we're going to have healthy kids. So let's talk about 5 of those rules. The first one is that both husband and wife have clearly defined roles. Mothers and fathers are not interchangeable. I don't care what you hear on TV. Mothers and fathers are not interchangeable. We have distinct roles. The fact that we have distinctly different bodies is a clue to the fact that we have distinctly different souls as well. There is a difference between masculinity and femininity, and the dad and the mom contribute different things to the family. The glory of masculinity is about initiating, to be the first one out and lead. The glory of masculinity is about showing strength through protecting and providing for others. The glory of femininity is responding, being responsive, and where masculinity is about showing strength, femininity is about showing beauty as we nurture and as we show creativity and as we manifest our intuition. Now, it's not that we don't want strong women, and it's not that we don't want beautiful men, but the primary contribution of men and women is different. Children need to know that mommies and daddies are different, and they have different ways of doing things. This is the point at which I will plead with you to understand that when your husband is taking care of your children, let him do things his way. I talked to somebody that was absolutely furious when she found out that her husband had made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for their child and he had done it wrong. And I asked, how did he make it that was wrong? Bread, peanut butter, jelly, put them together. She goes, he didn't do it my way. My way is the right way. No, your way is your way. But give your husband room to do things his way. Your kids need to know that there are differences between men and women, between daddies and mommies, between husbands and wives. Give them freedom to do that. The second rule is that the father needs to be an involved leader, needs to be warm and affectionate toward his children. The fatherlessness in our culture is devastating in terms of how it is making things fall apart. We love to talk, at Living Hope, we love to talk about the 3 A's that all children need. God gives us these needs. These are good, godly given needs for attention, affection, and affirmation. Everybody needs attention, affection, and affirmation, but they especially need it from their dads. I don't have to tell you to give it to your children, moms, because that's just the most natural thing in the world for you to do. Is to give your kids the 3 A's. But children desperately need these things from dad. They need him to pay attention, to watch them. That's one of the benefits of men being linear and being able to do one thing at a time, is that when a dad is just watching his kids and not doing anything else, the kids get the benefits of 100% of daddy's attention. That is powerful. They need his affection. They need both verbal affection for him to say, I love you. I'm so glad you're my child. I'm so glad I am your dad. And they need the physical affection. They need, little girls need daddy to be physically affectionate in a very safe way, in a tender way. Boys need kisses and hugs from their dads. They need the roughhousing of the daddies do with sons. Now, I'm not saying that girls don't roughhouse with their daddies. Some do. But that type of physical affection is huge. By the way, one of the things in over 25 years of ministry at Living Hope, dealing with unwanted homosexuality, one of the things we hear over and over again is that from so many of the men especially, but both the men and the women, is it's not so much that I want the sex, I just want to be held. And so many of them have a daddy-shaped hole, and they're looking for a man to just love them and hold them in a non-sexual way. But that's not available, so if it comes with sex, okay. But boys desperately need daddy's affection, and they need his affirmation. They need daddy to tell them, I am so proud of you. The executive director at Living Hope, Ricky Chalette, loves to instruct parents that there's some powerful, powerful words for daddies to say to their kids, but especially to their sons. You're good enough, you're strong enough, and you've got what it takes. You're good enough, you're strong enough, and you've got what it takes. When a boy gets that kind of affection and affirmation from his dad, he can believe it. It's powerful. When dad is an involved leader, when he's warm and affectionate and affirming toward his children, it'll prevent the emotional void of that daddy-shaped hole in a child's heart, that sense of intimate, godly, healthy connection with a man. Boys can grow up not comfortable with being male, like there's something wrong, with masculinity, or a drive to prove themselves to be hyper masculine, to be just stupid in the way that they go do risky, dumb things just to prove that I'm a guy and I belong in the world of men. If daddy tells him you belong in the world of men, he will believe him. Girls need their father's affection and his affirmation. And if they don't get it, I'm sure you know of girls who will go out and get it from any place they can, any guy who will give it to them. A lot of girls have found themselves in the back seats of cars and in empty homes after school, just looking for any male's affection. Promiscuity often is traced back to a brokenness in a girl's relationship with her dad. The third rule for marriage and family is about the mom, that she needs to love and nurture her family without being controlling. And let me just say, as a recovering control freak, it is possible to back off and not try to control everything. One of the things that I discovered is that being controlling is idolatrous, because we're putting ourselves in the place of God. We want to be the most important thing in somebody else's life, and we want them to do things our way because we are in control. We are the sovereign. That's being an idol. That's idolatrous, and it's sin. So I have had to work at not being a control freak as I've gotten older. But mom needs to love and nurture her family. Girls need their mothers to show them that being a female is a good and lovely gift from God. Boys need their mothers to love and respect them without smothering or overprotecting. In Ephesians 5:33, it's very interesting, where God tells husbands to love their wives because a girl's primary need is to feel loved and cherished. And he tells wives to respect their husbands because a man's primary need is to be respected. Boys need their mothers to love them and respect them, to tell them, when you spoke the truth then, and instead of lying, I respect that in you. When mothers give boys and girls choices, that they feel respected. That's powerful. By the way, if you are not aware of the book Parenting with Love and Logic, please do yourself a favor and get that book. It is one of the most powerful. It's a super tool for parenting. But one of the things that it teaches you is how to give your children choices. You control the choices, but then whatever they choose, you're going to abide by. And when you do that, it helps them to feel respected. So boys need mommies to love and respect them without smothering them, without overprotecting them, and being the helicopter mom. I was told as a young mom that my job was to keep reaching back to my apron strings and keep loosening them 1 inch at a time, so that by the time my children achieved adulthood, I wasn't expecting them to relate to me as their mommy for the rest of their lives. And I was very grateful for that advice. A lot of women are just naturally controlling because when we have children, it is a heady feeling to realize we are like God to that child. They will die without us. We are responsible for loving them and feeding them and cleaning them up and holding them and just pouring love from our heart into them. And that is a very heady feeling. And it feeds into the brokenness of wanting to control and be like God in somebody's life. But not everybody deals with that. Sometimes when there's been brokenness in a girl's family, the other extreme from controlling is being a doormat. And that's not right either. If you have issues with people just steamrolling over you and you've lost your you've lost your voice, then do yourself a favor and get a hold of John Townsend and Henry Cloud's book, Boundaries, because that is very helpful for life coaching wisdom about how to live not as a doormat and not as controlling either. The fourth rule for marriage and family is that the father loves the mother. I saw a bumper sticker that said once, "The best thing a father can give his children is to love their mother." Absolutely true. When daddy loves mom, a little girl grows up believing it is safe and good to be a woman. And men can be trusted. And it shapes the way she sees men. So when daddy loves mom, that is telling a girl it's just fine for you to be a girl. And someday you're going to look forward to being in a good, healthy relationship with a man. So it's very important for the little girl to see her mother, with whom she connects and identifies, because they're both female. She needs to see daddy loving the mom in a powerful way. When a boy sees his father cherishing and protecting his mother, he sees a man going beyond himself. He sees the glory of masculine strength. He sees that being a man is a good and wonderful gift from God. When a little boy sees a father disrespecting his mother, abusing his mother, ignoring his mother, shaming his mother, he's thinking, there's something wrong with you using your strength and the fact that you're bigger and stronger to mistreat my mother, and I love my mother. And it's often he will distance himself from the dad, and that's a terrible thing. When boys push away from their dad, they're not going to have a good close connection, and there's going to be some gender issues there. There are going to be consequences down the road. The fifth rule for marriage and family is that the mother shows respect for the father. When she shows respect for the father, she shows that women can enjoy and celebrate men. It's going to shape a girl's view of men in general. When mom respects dad, she gets it in her head, men deserve respect. And they do. Every person deserves respect because we are all made in the image of God. But if mother is disrespecting the dad, if she's and just nitpicking him and nagging him and being ugly to him and talking ugly about him, she's not going to respect her mother for the way she's treating her father, who she loves. But it's also going to make her want to distance herself from her mother, or she'll do exactly the same thing that her mother does. And she'll become the kind of woman that shows disrespect for men. And that's ugly. So when mom respects dad, it shapes a girl's view of men in general. And when a boy sees mom respecting dad, he learns that men deserve respect, that masculinity is a good thing. And because he longs to be respected, God made him to be respected. It's going to help him feel good about being male. So we want boys to grow up in homes where they think that masculinity is a good thing, as opposed to seeing a weak father who accepts the contempt of the mother, or a mean father who fights back, or who starts a fight. There's going to be problems if that's what masculinity looks like to a boy. He's going to think, I don't want to be that kind of man. I don't want to be masculine that way. I've got to be something other than that, because there's something so wrong about that type of masculinity. So let me just, as I close, let me give you some suggestions on affirming children's gender. We need to affirm boys in their masculinity, no matter where they are on the masculinity spectrum, whether they're rough and tumble, whether they're emotionally sensitive and creative and artistic. Affirm boys in the kind of masculine they are. Affirm girls in their femininity, whatever the kind of femininity that they are. If they're girly girls, great. If they're tomboys, great. This is the kind of girl that God chose for you to be, and let's clap for you and celebrate you and help you to enjoy the kind of girl, the kind of boy that you are. Typically, active boys need to hear words of affirmation and acceptance for what makes them boys. Don't shame them for the fact that they want to roll around and play fight in the living room. If you have to send them outside, send them outside. But for example, I overheard a friend on the phone one day. She said, "Boys, no, we do not roughhouse. Not in the house, not ever." And I thought, no, don't tell them that. Because what she was saying is, what comes naturally to you as a boy is not acceptable. She was trying to turn her boys into girls. That's not okay. So we need to tell boys, it's great that you are different from me. For example, I have a friend that went on a walk near a lake with her 4-year-old son, and she told him, after hearing me talk about the gender stuff, she said, "Parker, I am so glad that God made you a boy, and I'm glad that you like what I think are yucky things like frogs and toads and worms and snails. But you like those things, and I'm glad you do." And he didn't say a word. And she did not realize at that point that often it just takes a while for things to percolate in a boy's brain and a man's brain. So it's not a problem when they don't immediately respond. They need to process those, and it takes some time in a male brain. So they went down to the lake, they saw all these yucky things, and when they went back to the lake house, the little boy burst in the door and went and found his grandmother and said, "Grandma, Mommy's glad that God made me a boy and that I like things that she doesn't like." She thought, oh my goodness, he was listening. But he gloried in the fact that Mom accepted him and affirmed him for being the kind of boy that he was, even though it was something that she didn't particularly care for, but she was celebrating the differences and not shaming him for them. Sensitive boys who prefer quieter and more creative activities like reading and music and the performing arts. I'm thinking of a little boy that the whole family says he came out of the womb dancing. And he would, if you want him to go from point A to point B, he's going to dance to get there. And the whole family, all his brothers and sisters and both of his parents, just celebrate him as being a dancer. And they don't have anything weird about that. They just say, God made you to dance. And he's just the kind of boy that he is. I'm a boy who dances. So we need to support what their gifts are. With little girls, feminine little girls, the ones who are classically feminine, stereotypically feminine, they need to be cherished in their girlishness and called princess. And actually, I'm going to make an argument that all little girls need to be called Daddy's princess. Every little girl needs to hear she's beautiful, especially from her daddy. There's something powerful about the B word, the beautiful word. We were made to feel like we're beautiful, and every little girl needs to hear that. And if we don't hear it, it leaves a wound. Saying, oh, you look cute, you look good, that's nice, but it doesn't deeply nourish the soul like hearing we are beautiful. And it doesn't matter what a girl looks like, because God doesn't know how to make anything but beautiful. So you're not lying if she's not beauty contest material. But tomboys and classically not feminine girls need to be affirmed in the type of feminine they are. They need to be reassured that they can be a soft, feminine lady and a strong leader or a great athlete, that there is so much room for different kinds of femininity. And boys and girls need parents to be their primary cheerleaders for the kind of boys and girls that they are. Finally, let me just say that every child's heart longs to hear the words, I am so glad you're you, and I love you just the way you are. My prayer is that you will go home and just scoop up your children and communicate to them, God made you just the way He wanted you, and I just think you're perfect for who you are. I'm so glad you're you. I love you just the way you are. Thank you.